everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I am sharing 5 products that are a little bit pricey but are well worth your investment. If you know me, you know I love spending money on crafting supplies, but I like the things that I buy to be worthwhile. So for organizing, I find hacks of things that I can get that are more affordable but still organize my supplies, and I'll link to that video here. As for products, I like to get a lot of bang for my buck out of them. I like them to have many uses. But for paper crafting tools, I am willing to spend the extra money as long as those tools are high quality, do what they say they're gonna do, and more. So in today's video, I'm sharing 5 different tools that I think are well worth the investment. First up, let's take a look at the Gemini Jr, which is an electronic die cutting machine made by Crafter's Companion. Honestly, I don't know how I survived with my manual die cut machines. They never cut this well, and I was never as happy with the result as I am now with the Gemini Jr. So let me give you an up close and personal look at the things that I love about this machine. The Gemini Jr plugs in and has an on-off switch right here. The basic die cutting sandwich includes a bottom cutting plate, a plastic shim, a magnetic sheet, and a top cutting plate. I recently picked up their new magnetic shim and I love it because it has all kinds of rulers and cutting guides and marks on it to help you easily measure what you're die cutting. You can buy fresh cutting plates individually, so I usually bring my bottom cutting plate to the top of the sandwich and put the new cutting plate at the bottom of the sandwich. Because the cutting surface is 6x9, you can easily cut larger dies like this 5x7 rectangle. I temporarily adhere my dies to cardstock using my Thermoweb purple tape, then flip it over and place it on the magnet sheet with the cutting lines of the die facing up so that you don't cut through your magnetic shim. Then simply place your top cutting plate on top and place the sandwich into the opening, and it catches on the Gemini Jr and automatically passes through the machine out the back. Although the sandwich may take some time to get used to, the crisp edges of the die cut are second to none. I found the pressure of the Gemini to be great with intricate dies. When cutting an intricate die, place the magnet on the plastic shim and bottom cutting plate as usual. Place the die with the cutting side facing up on that and place your cardstock on top of the die. Then place a Gemini Jr metal shim, which you can purchase separately, on top of that, and the top cutting plate on top, and send it through the die cut machine. You can see how easily those tiny squares come out. I've cut this same die with a manual die cutting machine and had to forcibly poke out most of the squares by hand. The few that remained were easily flicked out or gently pressed out. You can use the same die to create an embossed effect too. The sandwich includes a bottom cutting plate, the plastic shim, but no magnetic sheet this time. Instead, place the die with the cutting side up on the plastic shim and your cardstock on top. Place the rubber embossing mat, which is another accessory, on top of that, and add the top cutting plate on top of all of that. Then run this through the die cutting machine for an amazing embossed effect. You can use any die this way. If you prefer to use an embossing folder, place the cardstock inside the embossing folder. Place the closed embossing folder in between a bottom cutting plate and a top cutting plate and run through the die cut machine. There's no more straining to crank a handle and you achieve beautiful embossed results. The Gemini Jr, in my opinion, has been worth every penny I spent on it. The next thing I want to share with you was a huge game changer for me. I was never a good stamper. I was afraid of stamping for a long time. I started paper crafting with scrapbooking, and stamping on a scrapbook layout that was already almost finished used to send me into hives. But when the Misti came out, I was blown away. And for the first time ever, I felt like I could make a card that was all stamping, and I still, to this day, use it all the time whenever I'm creating. Let's take a look at the Misti and some features that I really love about it that I think make it worthwhile the investment. I own both the mini Misti and the original size Misti. The mini Misti perfectly fits an A2 card front, and all the Mistis now come with the bar magnets, which keep your paper perfectly in place. I use purple tape wrapped around my magnet to make it easier to grab. One huge benefit of either size of the Misti is the ability to stamp multiple images at once. So I place my stamps on the paper with the stamp side down and close the door to pick up my stamps. Once the stamps are secure, I ink them up. I'll share here why the Misti changed my stamping life. I purposefully am going to do a horrible job inking up the stamps, and you can see that my images did not come out. But with the Misti, I can simply recheck that my paper is tucked into the bottom of the corner of the Misti, re-ink the stamps, and now I apply even pressure by rubbing the door. If you press too hard on the edge of the stamp, you still can get a smeared impression. And now, look at how beautifully the stamps come out. You can continue to stamp them multiple times until you get the best, crispest black impression of your images. One of the benefits of owning the original size Misti is being able to stamp large 6x6 background stamps. This one in particular is a cling rubber stamp, and since it already has a layer of foam, I need to remove the foam pad from my Misti before stamping. I then add my 6x6 cardstock and 6x6 stamp. Both are aligned with the bottom left corner to make sure nothing shifts. When I close the Misti door, I pick up the large stamp, and now I can have fun inking it up. I chose 3 colors of Distress Oxide. Once I close the door and add lots of even pressure, and then I love the tricolor effect. The other great thing about the Misti is that it makes it easy to line up your stamped sentiments. To make this process even easier, I like to use the Simon Says Stamp Misti Grid Transparency. All you have to do is place the A2 transparency on top of your A2 card panel. Grab your sentiment stamp and use the transparency grid lines to line up your sentiment. The lines make it easy whether you want the sentiment right in the middle or at the center of the top or bottom of the card. Once you have the placement how you like it, simply close the Misti door to pick up the stamp. When you open the door, set aside the transparency and ink up the stamp and close the door. Apply even pressure and you get a perfectly placed sentiment. Another handy accessory is the Misti mouse pad. So rather than using the included foam and pieces of grid paper, you can simply use the mouse pad, which can be wiped clean after use. Another benefit of the original Misti versus the mini Misti is that you can enjoy some creative stamping techniques, such as stamping off the side of the card panel like I did here. You want to get really creative and do things like stamp off both sides. You need the original Misti, and you might like the Misti Creative Corners, which includes these specialty L magnets. Similarly to where I stamp and add 2 different colors of ink, the Misti makes layered stamping easier to achieve. The Creative Corners set includes an L-shaped ruler and 2 triangular pieces that can be used for fun, creative, diagonal stamped effects as well. The next product I want to talk about is another big love of mine and another game changer for me. I used to love the look of distress ink blending and all the different effects that you can do with distress inks. I was never very good at it. I think some of it has to do with patience. I'm not a super patient person, and I would just try and rush and get it done, and then I wouldn't get a nice, soft, even blend. And then came Distress Oxides. And I have to say, for me, it was another game changer, truly and completely. I think if you've ever tried blending before and were frustrated with the results, these are the inks that I think you should try. I'm not saying you need the entire range of distress inks. I would grab my favorite colors. I always gravitate towards the brights. So let's check out why I love Distress Oxide inks so much. You've probably already heard that Distress Oxide inks are a unique formulation with elements of both pigment and dye inks. What that means to me is that they sit on top of the paper more than dye inks, which sink right in. This gives you time to move them around and allows you to create a smooth blend. Right away, you can see that there are hardly any harsh lines and that any lines that are created can be easily blended out. Because these inks sit on the paper, 2 colors can be combined, so you can see how the colors mix together beautifully. Just like the original Distress inks, Oxides also react with water. It is so simple to spritz a panel covered with ink with water, pat it dry with a paper towel, and create this cool artistic effect. I absolutely love creating with Distress Oxide inks, and I think they are 100% worth the money. Back Back in the days when I first started scrapbooking, I remember there was a whole camp of people who liked to use X-Acto knives and rulers, and then there was a whole camp of people who were like, ooh, X-Acto knives are scary, and needed to use or wanted to use trimmers. I fell in the trimmer camp, of course. So it was always really important to me to get a really good trimmer, one that would last, one that would cut straight. I've been through several trimmers, just like several die cut machines, and I think I've finally settled on the 2 trimmers that I love and that I think are worth the money. So let's just take a look at the trimmers I love and why I love them. I own the Tim Holtz Tonic Studios Guillotine trimmer on the left and the Fiskars Precision Rotary Bypass 12-inch trimmer on the right. The guillotine trimmer does have an exposed blade when you lift the arm, so this is not one to leave out on your desk if you have kids around. The benefit of the guillotine blade is that you can cut a tiny strip of cardstock and get a nice clean edge on all of your cuts. I use this trimmer to cut my 8.5 by 11 pieces of cardstock into 4 A2 panels. There are many sizes of guidelines on the base of the trimmer, and the plastic paper guide is the place to keep your hand to hold the paper while still cutting. The Fiskars trimmer is a rotary trimmer, so there's no exposed blade. There's still a protective guide and even a lock to keep a child from lifting up the guide. One of the best things about this trimmer is that it opens up to fit a 12 by 12 piece of paper. This is the trimmer I use to cut 8.5 by 11 paper vertically to create my top folding card bases or when I'm scrapbooking. Even without the guillotine edge, you can get a nice straight cut without ragged edges. The trimmer folds up and magnets keep it locked together. There are rubber feet to hold it in place whether it's closed or open to full width. The plastic edge shows exactly where the blade is going to cut. Plus, this trimmer is strong enough to cut multiple pieces of cardstock, even up to thin chipboard. Similarly to the Distress Oxide inks, this last item is not really a tool, but without it, I feel like I would not be able to color in stamped images as well as I can. And what I am talking about now is Copic markers. And I've seen lots of people post in different areas asking if Copics are worth it. And I'm here to tell you that they are. First of all, these markers do technically last a lifetime because you can replace the nibs and you can refill the ink. The other thing that is great about them is because they are a high quality alcohol marker, they blend better than anything on the market. Let's take a look at Copic markers and why I love them. Copic markers come in a huge variety of colors. The gray line on the marker indicates which side of the marker has a brush tip. The other side has a chisel tip. I don't use the chisel tip that much, but it is great for large ink blending or creating backgrounds. Whether you're coloring faces or florals, if you choose several colors that blend well together, you can achieve depth and dimension that is not possible with standard markers. Personally, while there is definitely a learning curve here, I find that Copics blend better than any other marker I've tried. Try adding shading with grays to achieve the same shadows and blending that you could achieve with another marker color. If you color outside the lines, use the colorless blender to push the color back inside the line. The tip with this is to wait until the coloring is dry before you try to do it. You can also use the colorless blender to lighten the tips of an image and create highlights. I love how easy it is to create depth and dimension by blending out bits of darker colors to make realistic leaves and florals. Those are my favorite top 5 big ticket craft supplies that are 100% worth the investment, including the Gemini Jr, the Misti, Distress Oxide inks, 2 fabulous trimmers, and Copic markers. If you liked today's video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified as soon as my new videos are available. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon.